Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chief Economist at the Heritage Foundation, Steve Moore.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great privilege to see so many friendly faces. I think I know I've been talking to so many of you, and it's just, you are fellow patriots, so thank you for what you do. And I call you the Paul Reveres of this country, and this is so important. And I just want to tip my hat to Jenny Beth Martin and Tea Party Patriots for putting this together and being the one kind of voice of reason in this town, what I call the sanity-free zone of America, and Jenny has done such a fantastic job. Jenny asked me to talk about how we could fix this economy. And, you know, my short answer to that is look at everything Barack Obama did in his first term and do exactly the opposite in the second term, right? How many of you, some of you know I just recently joined the Heritage Foundation. I was at the Wall Street Journal editorial board, which was fun, and I heard the congressman talking about the New York Times. It's interesting, we have a rivalry, New York Times, Wall Street Journal. How many of you read the Wall Street Journal editorial page pretty regularly? Thanks for reading it, and I have some really good news. You know, the newspaper business is a tough business, and of the two newspapers, Journal and the New York Times, we're actually been making money. I don't know how many of you looked at the financials recently of the New York Times. That newspaper is this close to being in federal bankruptcy court, and it just couldn't happen to a nicer group of people. All right, here is my agenda for, I'm going to go through this really quickly, 5 or 6 things that we need to do to fix the economy. The number one thing everyone knows, repeal Obamacare. Don't mend it, end it. You've heard about this all day. I'm not going to get into it. But I'll just tell you a story. I was giving a talk actually earlier this week to the congressional Republicans and kind of advising them about how to win the election and how to turn around the economy. And I told them, I said, whatever question you are asked, on whatever subject it is, Ukraine, the Middle East, you know, what's happening in social policy, the first answer is, well, of course we have to repeal Obamacare. No matter what the question is, the answer is always repeal Obamacare. Number 2, let us burn up this tax code and never let it come back again. I mean, why don't we, the next time you all are in town, why don't we all get together and bring that entire tax code, which is, you know, like the length of 6 Encyclopedia Britannicas. Take it all out right in front of the Capitol and have a big bonfire and just burn the whole thing up. We have 2 alternatives, the flat tax and the national sales tax. The flat tax is the kind of postcard return, 18% tax rates, get rid of all the deductions, loopholes. And then there's, of course, with the national sales tax or fair tax, get rid of the personal income tax, corporate income tax, capital gains tax, dividends, replace it all with one national sales tax you pay at the cash register. And I just want to do a poll of you all in this room. If you have 3 options, one is the flat tax, the second option is the national sales tax, and the third option is keep the system pretty much the way it is. How many of you like how many of you like the flat tax option? About half of you. How many of you like the fair tax? How many of you like it just the way it is? I was giving a talk in Boston a few weeks ago, and this guy in the back of the room was wildly waving his hand. I said, "Sir, what do you do?" He said, "I'm a tax accountant." Of course, he liked the system the way it is. We have got to fix the tax system. It is albatross around the neck of the economy. Third, drill, baby, drill. Drill, baby, drill. You know, the irony of this president, Barack Obama will have been in office for 8 years. And in his 8 years, is this rich irony or what? He will have presided over the biggest oil and gas boom in American history. And he hates this stuff, right? He even takes credit for it, even though everything he's doing is trying to stop it. This is the biggest story, the thing that's hit the economy in 50 years. And ladies and gentlemen, you've heard this. I've been saying this for years now. It's almost becoming conventional wisdom. If we get this right, and we continue to exploit our natural resources that are here in such great abundance, the United States of America, this great, great, great country of ours, in 6 years' time, will move from being an oil and gas import country to an oil and gas export country. We're going to sell this stuff, not buy it. And think about what that means for our economy. Think about what that means for our national security if we don't have to buy this stuff from countries like Venezuela and Saudi Arabia and Iran that are hostile to America. It has huge impacts on what's going on with our manufacturing. I don't know how many of you have been following this, but you know, Europe over the last 10 years has gone with all this green energy stuff, right? They were the big leaders on green energy, solar, windmills, and all of this stuff. Have you been following this? They're all moving away from that as fast as possible. You know why? It doesn't work. It doesn't work. We have spent $100 billion under the Bush administration and the Obama administration on green energy, wind and solar. Anybody want to take a guess today, after spending $100 billion, what percentage of our electricity comes from wind and solar power? 2%. You are right, sir, 2%. That was a great return on investment, right? 2% of our electricity. We've got to go full speed ahead with this. And if we do this, we are going to see an incredible economic revival. It's amazing. How many of you have ever been to North Dakota? Raise your hand. I went there last year. It is amazing, isn't it, sir? I mean, it's like the Wild West out there. It's like California during the gold rush days. I mean, even the McDonald's workers are making $16, $18 an hour in North Dakota. There are so many jobs there. When President Obama says raise the minimum wage, and when I see these bums on the street here in D.C. and New York, I say, go to North Dakota. That's where all the jobs are, right? It is a great thing. We got to go after it full frontal. Fourth, let's cut some government spending. I mean, let's get serious about cutting government spending. I believe that there are 3 ways we could reduce this budget deficit very significantly overnight. Abolish the Department of Education, the Department of Energy, and the Department of Commerce. Just get rid of them. Get rid of them. Let's make America look like Texas, not California, New York, and Illinois, right? How many Texans in the room? Any Texans? I know there are a few of you. You know, the red states in this country, the states that are getting it right, states like Texas, and states like Oklahoma, and states like Arizona, and I know the southern states like North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, you are doing it right. And meanwhile, I'm embarrassed. I'm from Illinois. I mean, my God, are you seeing what's happening in Illinois? I mean, Mitch Daniels, the former Indiana governor, said it so well. He said, you know, living next to Illinois is like living down the street from The Simpsons. I mean, we're just so dysfunctional. But we have got to emulate those policies. There's 9 states in the country. This should be a top priority for you all in the states. If you are, raise your hand if you are from a state that does not have an income tax. How many of you? There's a lot of people from Texas, Florida, New Hampshire, Tennessee. Let's try to make some of these other states, like Georgia, like North Carolina, like South Carolina, like Arizona, let's try to make more states income tax free. Let's make the entire South of America, south of the Mason-Dixon line, let's make it one gigantic income tax free zone. And let's let all those jobs and all those capital go there. By the way, I have to tell you a really happy story. Sometimes we get grumpy about the way things are going. Did you see what happened last week in Chattanooga, Tennessee? When we beat the unions, we kept the AFL-CIO and the UAW out of Tennessee. They did not get a foothold in Chattanooga. I was there working with the state think tanks and the state Tea Party groups, and for those of you who helped, that was would you all agree, that was a pretty big victory we had over the unions. So really pleased about that. Last thing I'll say, let's take on the class warfare of the left. This idea, you know, it's interesting in America, there's only one group you can legally discriminate against in America anymore: rich people. You know, people are successful. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. Look, I'm going to make a confession to you all. I want to be rich. I want to be rich. I think this is the American dream, to want to be rich, to want to succeed, to start a business, to be an entrepreneur. And somehow, because of the rhetoric in Washington, we've demonized that. We demonize people who are successful. It's anti-American. It's anti-American dream. I mean, you look at the people in the top 2 or 3%, and I know you all know this, but because you have a high political and policy IQ, that's why you're here. But if you look at the people in the top 2 or 3%, the people who, oh, we're going to put all these taxes on them and tear them down, do you know what 70% of those people do for a living? They own, operate, and invest in small businesses. That's what they do. They're the people who make this economy work. Now, sometimes I debate this guy, Robert Reich. He was the former labor secretary for Bill Clinton. And, all he ever talks about is jobs. We need more jobs in this country. Of course we need more jobs. We need 20 million more jobs in this country. And I say, Bob, all you ever do is talk about jobs, and then you talk about taxing all the businesses. How are you going to get more jobs if you tax the businesses that create the jobs? I mean, this guy just does not have his tray table in the upright and locked position, right? He just doesn't get this stuff at all. So let's take this on. Let's defend people who are successful, who build things. I always say the people at the top, they're the people who sign the front end of the paycheck, not the back. How many of you in this room have actually started a business? Raise your hand. God bless you. It's one of the great pursuits in America. It's what makes our country so strong, the entrepreneurial instinct. And we have to reward that. We have to encourage that in our kids and not say that terrible Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and people who, Ray Kroc and the others who created the great empires and the great businesses in America today. There's no greater pursuit. I tell this every time I go on college campuses. There is no greater pursuit than starting your own business. And the reason that the left and the White House hates business is, guess what? None of them have ever started a business, right? In fact, Barack Obama's never even worked for a business. So they would have no idea how to start a business. Well, I want to make one last point. We should do something. The biggest scam in America today is the cost of higher education universities. It is the greatest scam, isn't it? What these universities are getting away with is just outrageous. The average tenured professor in America today teaches 3 hours a week, and they make $150,000 a year. We have to take on this empire of higher education and bring those tuitions down for middle-class families, because it's robbery. It's robbery. My son goes to Northwestern, pays $60,000 a year. I said, Justin, I'll pay you $200,000 right now. You play computer games for 4 years, and we'll both be better off. He said, yeah, that sounds pretty good. But that's something we want to really appeal to the middle class. We ought to take on this outrageous increase in the cost of higher education. It is something with healthcare we can't do it. So to summarize, how do we turn around this economy? Very simply, no more bailouts, no more TARPs, no more stimulus plans, no more Obamacare, no more cash for clunkers, freedom, liberty, and justice for all. Thank you very much for what you do. Take care.